All right. Welcome to the Apalachee Inshore Fishing Report. This is the June edition. I am Captain Jay Carson. This is Evan Snow. And today we have special guest Crystal.
Captain Crystal.
Captain Crystal from Crystal Sea Charters, right?
Yes,
Pezzic.
sir.
And we're happy to have her on the show today. She's going to be joining us to give us some insight on what's going on. Evan, it's June. It's summertime.
Yeah. First off, we're up here at the Nowhere Grill. Thank them for having us here.
Yeah, this episode is sponsored by the Nowhere Grill. We are up here at Nowhere Grill on Keaton Beach Road. It is Wednesday night. It is actually pretty crowded tonight.
Man, they always got a lot of people in here. So one thing I'm a little upset about right off the rip is we had a little bit of a discussion about this thing right over my right shoulder here.
That's why I'm sitting here. Someone's got to support him.
Yeah. So I said we needed to hang a T-shirt or something over it, and Mark gave me a little grief and said we wouldn't get a free meal if we covered it up. So I'm a bit of a sellout. So I apologize for everybody having to see this, but
Go Gators.
this is what it is.
So like we said, it is June. It's summertime. It's starting to get hot. We had a kind of a relatively cool May.
Yeah.
We didn't really start getting some temperatures in the 90s really until just recently. Water temp has stayed relatively cool, which has actually been beneficial because the fishing's still been pretty good for the most part.
Red fishing.
The red fishing, yeah. There's a lot of redfish around still, but we'll talk a little bit about how what we've been seeing and what's been going on here.
So,
go ahead.
Let's throw it to Captain Crystal. And what's one of the things you've been seeing out there right now? Some of your what's going on?
Well, it's hit or miss on some of the charters, but people are bringing in plenty of trout the past few weeks, but now it's slowing down. The trout are spread out. They're holding. You'll find more of them moving to that deeper water because the water temperature's warming up. They don't want to be up in, but there are still bigger ones. You're finding the bigger ones up in the shallow water.
Mm-hmm.
Caught a few on top water last week, up in two feet of water. But if you want more consistent catching, go to about that 6 to 8 feet of water.
Yeah, and that's what we've really been seeing. And I don't know. Crystal and I were talking before the show, and we're not really sure why, but the trout have been a little tough. They're spread out for sure. I don't know why, if it's the drought we're having, just a lack of rain, if it's these late cool snaps we had in May, or fishing pressure is something.
Yeah. Are you finding water clarity at all making a difference as far as finding picking up good numbers of trout?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have. We are finding more in that clear water, the gin clear water. Though we did pick up a few, we've had such windy days, how everything got churned up on that. It was tougher fishing. Definitely more in that clear water.
So, yeah, and for Crystal fishes out of Steenhatchee for those who don't know. So it's a little different setting here. I've actually been kind of doing the opposite, especially on the calm days. I've been running and trying to find some some darker water, not necessarily turbid, but maybe just some. But
some
honestly,
tannic
there's not much of that around right now. Even in the areas that I mean, if you know where we're talking about, are usually kind of always dark. It's still pretty clear. All over the place. So it's even, with the drought, lack of rain, and stuff like that, it's been hard to find. But it's some people are still catching some trout in shallow.
Like Crystal was saying, there's still some big fish in shallow, and those are primarily coming on when you can get away with it, because the floating grass has been kind of hit or miss. So some days it'll be in, some days it'll be out.
Depends on the wind direction.
Yeah, we've had some last few days we've had some east winds in the morning, so that's kept the grass pushed out. And then about a week ago we were getting some strong west winds, and so that was keeping the grass pushed in. But when you can get out there and you can throw top water or throw plugs, throw some big plugs, there's still a lot of big trout in like you were saying, that 2 to 4 foot range, kind of in there where the redfish will be. So if you get a chance to do that, that's definitely something that you want to think about doing.
On the other side of that coin, we've been having a lot of luck with redfish here still. It's starting to get hot, and I imagine they usually spread out in the summertime, but we've been going in, and especially on those big highs, and even when they fall out on the lows, the in-between tides, have been a little little tough to pin them down, but on the highs and lows, we've been finding them, and it's been pretty good. I think that water temp staying lower through most of May has really kept them in there, and they haven't pushed out too deep yet. Because normally this time of year, if you're targeting trout in a little deeper water, you'll start catching redfish or two here.
So that just happened to us last weekend. We were catching some decent redfish in about 4 feet of water out from shore. Yeah. But quite a few. There's still
you
quite a few.
typically see that. Yeah, you typically see that when the bait starts to show up. When you get the big bait pods that you start, when you're out there fishing and you start to see those bait pods show up, that's when those redfish will start to push offshore a little bit. But there's still a bunch of redfish in shallow too.
Yeah, there is, and that's another thing that we can talk about for just a second. There's not a ton of bait out there. I mean, I'm seeing some, but I mean, at least where we fish, I don't know about. We fish a little different areas, but we're not seeing a ton. You'll see some here and there, but not maybe as much as you would normally this time of year. And I don't really know what to attribute that to either.
Yeah, everything seems like it's just running a little bit late this year as far as cobia, triple tail. Everything is just kind of a little bit behind. So I think that you can attribute the bait showing up late to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, what we have, I don't know if you have an issue there, but down in Steenhatchee, the smooth puffer, or they call them rabbit fish. Last year you were catching many, many more. This year we're catching half as many, but they still are.
They're frustrating.
You go through the tackle. You're definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm thankful they aren't as thick as they were last year, though.
I am thankful too.
Evan, you just about developed a gourmet way to eat them, right? I mean, aren't you keeping a few?
No.
So we were just mentioning redfish. You want to talk a little bit about redfish in here? What that's been like here in the last couple weeks, or what we've been seeing as far as that goes?
It's been pretty good. Been catching some really big fish actually. Some grown ones, and I noticed something the other day. Captain Kenny Mullins tried to knock the whole motor off the back of his motor the back of his boat the other evening. So I had to go out and tow him in the dark. And coming in the dark, it was low tide. We were pulling in, and there was shrimp still all over the flats. And I don't know if they've been
be a reason,
holding in, feeding on those. Yeah. But I mean, we had the Q beam out there, and the flats are just lit up with shrimp eyes. And I know some people have been still using shrimp and catching a lot of redfish this time of year, which is normally,
tough to do.
Yeah, with all the bait fish. But I know it's been successful, and maybe they're keying in on those shrimp with maybe the lack of bait fish, because like I said, they hadn't fallen out and started chasing those schools yet, I guess, of like pilchards or ballyhoo or
right.
Or
yeah,
whatever.
I'm seeing some ballyhoo, but like we said, the bait pods of pilchards or greenbacks or whatever, I'm not. Usually you run out and. Either whether you're running to and from a spot or you're out there drifting for trout, you'll see the little disturbances on the surface, and haven't seen too much of that lately. So, I anticipate that's going to happen, and once that does, you might see those trout get a little bit more bitey, too, once that happens, too.
Yeah, how you target these fish can be, even your presentation can make a difference. And you were saying you were using a certain presentation today and having good luck on it, right?
Yeah, today we were out fishing in that deeper water, 6 to 8 feet. We actually drifted into some 10 feet of water, but it was all about, typically when you're in that deeper water, you like to bounce. You're bouncing it off the bottom. And trying that, we weren't getting nearly as many bites. Today we were jigging it fast, jig, 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 and then you would stop, let it fall, and actually let it sit longer. Typically when you let it fall, you just bounce it right back up. For the past 3 or 4 days, letting it fall and letting it actually sit for a few seconds, and the fish are coming and picking it up off the bottom that way. And if they don't, you get up, jig, 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 let it fall, 1, 2, and usually something grabs it.
Now, I don't want to get like too much into your method here, but what kind of plastics specifically have you been using? I mean, if you don't want to answer that, you don't have to.
That's okay. Well, I can say we've been using. Are we allowed to say name brands?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Z-Man, we have been using, and actually a new one of my newest ones that I just started using, a Slick and Pink.
Okay, so what you're saying, especially the Slick, I don't know what Z-Man makes all kinds of.
Yeah, he does. Am I allowed to? I don't want to give all the secrets away.
No, I'm just saying if
I've been having a hard time finding these items.
Yeah, okay, well, don't say it then.
But also what I've been using is a 1/4 ounce in that deep water.
Right, and it sounds like the
Pretty
way
much
you're
it.
working it, and maybe what I was saying about the shrimp, maybe these fish are really still keyed in on some shrimp, because that sounds like
It
a
is.
shrimp jumping through the water and then settling
Send
down. So
That's exactly what they're doing.
that
Yeah.
may be what they're keyed
Yeah.
in on. Hey,
Well, I was going to say, just before we transition, I was going to say that just goes to show you, though, that, you should always try to vary your presentation throughout the
Absolutely.
day, because I think a lot of times we get stuck in a rut and, presenting the bait the same way that we always do. And it can be as simple as just changing up the presentation to get a bite.
Right.
So,
I started doing that a few years ago when I, trying to try something different. In the wintertime, you're usually trying to work your bait real slow
Yeah.
because the water's so much cooler.
Mhm.
Well, a few years ago, I was working we're in shallower water, working it slow, and I said, this is silly. Let's move to another spot. And I started reeling in a real fast jig, 22-inch trout, hit it. So then on the rest of that day, I did a fast presentation. We limited out within 45 minutes.
just
it went,
changing the
it,
presentation.
it went
yeah.
against everything that we knew. So if it's not working for you that day, what you're typically using, just like you said, change it up. Try something
Right.
different.
and that's so true, and there's so many examples I could give you of that. Even something weird, like sometimes during the summer we'll throw out the backside of the boat, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
backside of the drift,
Yeah,
and
I've done that.
and
Absolutely. I
they'll
told you.
bite that, and they won't. I guess it's the way the current's pulling or something.
must be,
but
yeah. I've
it's-
seen that too.
it works. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I don't know.
I have my cousin here watching. She was out fishing with us today, and I told him the same thing. She's shaking her head here. She said, yes. And I'm like, hey, sometimes it works. You get that paddle tail out there, and you throw it behind, and if the drift is fast enough, you just drift in it, and sometimes you just let it drag, or just bounce it every once in a while. Bam! Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna. Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't say that's not my go-to right off the bat,
Not mine
but
either.
if it's
Not
slow
mine
and
either.
you're and you're scratching your head, it's worth
Absolutely.
trying.
Absolutely.
Before we transition, also too, while we're going, if you guys have any questions, let's go ahead and start getting those in. Anything about June, the month of June, if you're planning on being down here and you want to know what's going on, go ahead and start getting those in. Like we always do at the end of the show, we'll get to those questions. And with that, we're going to transition into this month's Best Bets, which is also sponsored by Nowhere Grill, which is where we're at. And so we want to go ahead and get started on our Best Bets for the month of June. June is basically like where we start to get into the hot parts. So as we do that, and as the temperature rises and that water temperature warms, there's some things that you can do to maintain maybe not a high success rate, but to still be successful. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So Evan, you want to start us off, or?
Yeah, and this is just a cool place. Just before I get into that, just the lighting, and the atmosphere, and the outdoor seating, and it never seems, even during the summer, like it's too hot up here. And it's just
It is really pleasant. Yeah,
Yes.
if you've never been to Nowhere Grill, the atmosphere is
they got
vacation.
the trees lit up, string lights everywhere. I wish you guys could see this, but it'd be too much work to turn the camera. So we're not going to do that. But just take our word for it and come up here and experience yourself. But my best bet for this month is like we were talking about, deep water trout, probably. And you know what? And don't key in so much on just enjoy what you get. We're gonna throw some heavier lead, some 3/16 to 1/4 ounces, like Crystal was saying out there, and that 6 to even out to 12 feet of water. Depending on tide and depending on where you're fishing at. Soft plastics, and if you're throwing a popping cork, make sure you get that leader long enough to get it down there with them. They're not going to burn a whole lot of energy as this water temp warms up. They're not going to go way up through the water column. They're going to want to sit down on the bottom, and they're going to be lazy and try to feed down there just off the grass. They don't want to expose themselves traveling way up. So number one, if you're throwing artificials, make sure to keep it low and keep it towards the bottom. And I would say number two, if you're fishing with a popping cork, whether it be live bait or artificial, make sure your leader's long enough to get it down there with them. Jay, what do you think?
So my best bet for this month is, like we were saying, it's getting hot. So it's a time of day that you go is going to be very critical for June, and then even July and in August as we get into it. But one of the things that you can do is to try to make sure that you maximize the time that you're on the water to when the bite's going to be the best. And one of the things that I've found is that if you can coincide an early morning or a late evening, especially if you're looking for, redfish and trout on a high tide, get out there early. Try to coincide that on a day that's got a high tide, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and especially for redfish. You can get out there, you can throw top water, you can throw search baits, and you're going to usually find a few redfish on those types of conditions. If you get those slick, glassy mornings, which you can do in the summertime, throw some top water to start off with, and maybe vary your top water size too. If it's really slick, you might want to downsize a little bit, and downsize that bait. And then obviously, if you got a little breeze or whatever, you can upsize your bait a little bit. But that high water early or late in the evening is going to be a really good time to be out on the water. And so, for my best bet for the month of June would be that get out there and on those tides.
Captain Pezic, you got anything you want to add to that?
I think you two summed it all up. Exactly what I would. You got to go deep for those trout where they like it cool and that early morning. And if you've never done top water, boy, that's quite the experience.
It's fun,
it is quite the thrill.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ways to fish by far.
Mine too.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, but I mean, we're not lying to you.
No, oh my, it's. If you haven't done it, try it.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. And that'll continue, through June, even into July, August. It starts to slow down a little bit. It's going to be really critical, but in June is one of my favorite months to get out early and throw top water, and you're going to catch redfish. You're going to catch some big trout doing that. So.
Yeah. And if you have any of that floating grass, you're working on that. You were talking about that earlier about but also the outgoing tide will help push that grass out.
Yep.
If you're up in there and you wait long enough and you work that outgoing tide up against the shore,
that's for sure.
Some of that out.
And sometimes you can run a little bit. If you run, maybe half a mile or a mile away, you might find that the grass is a little bit better in one area as opposed to the other. So you can work your way out of it there. Because a lot of times what I found, especially as we get into summer, that the number of strikes that you get on top water is going to surpass the number of bites that you would get for any other type of bait that you would fish. So if you can get in a situation where you can throw it, you're gonna find that you're gonna find some fish.
Yeah. Okay, you don't need to mash that button, do you?
No, we're good.
Okay.
All right, so that's our this month's best bet, sponsored by Nowhere Grill. I'm thinking they're supposed to have some food coming for us, aren't they? We'll see here in a minute if they get some food out for us. So that's we're gonna roll into the tackle tip.
Yeah, tackle tip sponsored by Keaton Beach Bums. Right there by the boat ramp, public boat ramp, right in Keaton Beach. Offshore season's opening up this week, next week. I don't know. I'm not an offshore guy, but it's opening up soon. And Jared and Monica, they got all kinds of frozen bait in there. They got shrimp, but as far as offshore goes, they got everything you need. No need to stop in there. Get all your frozen bait. They're just putting in a cooler and an ice room in there, so you ice down your boat. They got boat gas, whatever. Grab breakfast, go out.
The food in there is really good. You wouldn't think that a gas station, with convenience store would have some great food. But the food in there is top notch.
If you haven't had their fried chicken,
it is phenomenal.
You are missing out. You absolutely need to get in there. Yeah. And if any of y'all who like chicken livers, do it.
Yeah, chicken livers. The gizzards are really good too. And speaking of food, we got some food coming in here. Thank you, sir.
Looks amazing.
We got some.
Some wings here.
Well, we got some hot wings, and this is the Nowhere shrimp. Look at this stuff. Doesn't that look awesome?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Sir.
Yes, absolutely.
That looks great.
So we got some hot wings. And what are those again? The Nowhere shrimp? I'm going to have to dig into those here in just a minute. That looks really good.
Yeah. So I guess we can roll the tackle tip now so we can eat.
All right, let's roll the tackle tip. So here's this month's tackle tip. So before we get into it a little bit, one of the things that, we deal with is in wind and fishing with braided line. Is some wind knots, and there's some things that you can do to kind of reduce that. And so that's this month's tackle tip, sponsored by Nowhere Grill. Guys, this month's tackle tip is how to cut down on some issues that you may have with braided line. Braided line is awesome. It's got a lot of great advantages as far as casting distance, as far as strength, and then the amount of line that you can fit on a spool. But the one disadvantage is wind knots. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can really cut down on those wind knots today. So the first thing that you can do, and this is something that you just got to get in the habit of, and you'll notice if you fish on the boat with me, you'll see me do it every single time. But the first thing that you can do is close that bail as that bait hits the water or right before it hits the water. And so when I make a cast, you're going to see that before that bait hits the water, I close the bail and then I also pull on my braid. It's just a habit that I've gotten into, and all that does is make sure that that braid is going to lay tight on that spool before I start to retrieve my bait. That's going to cut down on the little loops and the overlays that your line might get on the spool. And then the other way that you can really cut down on wind knots is, as you're fighting a fish, is to not reel against the fish as he's pulling drag. A lot of times when you hook a big redfish, they'll pull drag, and I see a lot of my clients reeling as the drag's pulling off. Well, you're not gaining any line when that's happening. That line is getting pulled off the spool, and it's just creating twist there. And so what you can do is just let that fish do what it's going to do, and then as it starts to get tired a little bit, then you can start to reel it in. And we'll do a little bit of demonstration on that here in just a few minutes. So one thing I see a lot of my clients do when they're fighting the fish is they reel against the drag. So when this fish pulls line, you just want to let him go. Just let him do his thing. Notice how I'm not even doing anything. I'm just holding it. I'm let him pull line. And then once he stops, well, he's still pulling line. Once he stops, then I'm going to reel down, and I'm just going to put steady pressure on him. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to reel down, and I'm going to put pressure on him. See, now I can let him, if he goes, I can let him go. But I'm keeping steady pressure on that fish the whole time. Reel down, put pressure. Reel down, and put pressure. And two things that's going to do. That's going to, again, like we talked about earlier, it's going to keep your line from twisting up, but it's also going to keep that line taut and keep it from, that hook pulling. You want to always keep that steady pressure on that fish, while you're fighting. So that's our tackle box tip for today. And maybe we might show you this fish here in a minute. Keep steady pressure on them, and they'll come right to the boat. All right, so there's your tackle tip for the month of June. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a pretty nice redfish, right, Evan?
That was a good redfish. You did a great job with it. I love how you were talking with your hands the whole time.
Yeah. Sorry about the wind in that video. The wind kind of kicked up on us there in the second part.
Hey, we're not professionals. I like it. Mark time bringing us food just right, man. He dropped off the food right where we got a little break, so we got to stuff our face, and it's really good, by the way, really good. Those shrimp are awesome.
The shrimp has a nice crisp to it with a little bit of a kick of a sauce. If you haven't had it, get on out here to Nowhere Grill.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess that rolls in. We're going to start rolling into our question and answer section. So like we said, guys, if you got any questions for either myself, Evan, or Crystal as we go through here in the next few minutes, we're going to be answering those. Whether it's you're coming down, in the month of June, you're coming on vacation, and you want to book a trip with one of the local guides here. Good. Back up.
There, you're back up.
Sorry about that.
So if you want to book a trip with one of the local guides here, or if you are just coming down and want to go fishing and you want to kind of figure out what's biting or what we've been doing, just feel free to ask away.
Yeah, Justin, he said the best bets answers this question. You can ask one anyway. Just think of one.
Yeah, for sure. Any questions like that. So we'll start rolling through. I think we got a couple of questions, but we would appreciate you guys getting in a few more questions so we could continue going here for a little bit longer.
Oh, I can talk about scalloping.
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about scalloping while they drop a couple questions.
Absolutely.
Here.
If you've never been scalloping, I know many of you have, and if you've been scalloping, you always come back. We know that they do. We can tell by Steenhatchee, by the hundreds of boats that show up during the summer. And if you've never been, and you don't even know what scalloping is about, we'd best describe it as an Easter egg hunt underwater. You're floating on, you've got a snorkel, a mask, hopefully you have fins, and you're floating on the surface of the water. You're looking down, and you're trying to find a scallop. What is a scallop? You know the Shell station that you see, the gas station? Look at them. They're enjoying this because they're getting a little free time there. That's a scallop shell.
It's Little Mermaid's bra.
They're a little bit smaller than the big side. But this is what you're looking for. So you're on the hunt. if those of you who like to hunt or just like the little challenge or the adventure, come scalloping. It's a great family activity, or get your friends together, get a group together. I have quite a few senior couples that will come out and do 2 or 3 days even. It's a relaxing time also. You don't have to find as many scallops if you don't want, or some people like to find their limit, get their limit, and then we'll go play on a sandbar. Or you just float in the water and throw the Frisbee around.
Yep. And that starts, the middle of June, right?
Yes.
a week from Monday, right? What is
15th of June, and
I think
runs
it's a
through Labor Day
Tuesday.
weekend.
I think it's a
I
Tuesday.
know.
and July is a very busy month. If you've never been scalloping, I don't know if I'd recommend July because there are a lot of people, but then again, you maybe want to be there to be around all the people.
It is a spectacle.
It's something to see, as many boats as you get out on the water.
Yep. All right, so let's get into some questions. Couple of comments, too. So Chew Strong says Pompano are still at SGI for anyone interested. So that's a good little bit of information there. I'm guessing that he's fishing those on the beach using a Pompano rig.
Yeah, land-based
some
fishing.
land-based fishing there. So if you want to get out there and catch a Pompano SGI or St. George Island, will be a good place to get started on that. It's probably going to be about the end of it, but that just goes to show you that everything's running late. Because normally by now Pompano is over. So we talked about things being a little bit behind so far this year.
About that.
That there's a good indicator of it right there. We talked about earlier about pulling your cork behind the boat. Michael Ammon says caught flounder under cork, dragging it behind the boat.
Wow.
So
I think there's another flounder question down there somewhere.
yeah, there's one that we're going to get to. He also says where them scallops at. Michael, you just need to book a trip with one of these two right
They're
here.
around, man. There's
Come
some
find the
scallops out there.
They're definitely there. I've been seeing them. All right, so here's our first question. Real question: when using cut bait, do you cut it a certain way that seems to generate more bites? I'm going to let you answer that and let you guys answer that one.
You want me to take it? You want to?
You can go.
Okay. Well, generally, I like to get some. It depends on what you're cutting. Are you cutting pinfish?
Well, let's say pinfish for now.
Okay. So I don't use the head generally. Usually, I cut off the head and I just discard it. And depends on the size of the pinfish. You can take that second half. You usually want a 3 to 4 inch piece. Even down to 2 inches. Just depends on the size. And you can either split that in half with a pair of scissors, or you can just fish the whole back end. And that's basically how you do pinfish. As far as, are you swatting flies?
I am.
Yeah.
I was acting like Jay out there fishing on that
Yeah,
little
you want
video.
some of the shrimp too, yeah. As far as
what about ladyfish?
Ladyfish, I don't know if you have a certain technique on ladyfish. I do cut it at an angle. I'll get the whole ladyfish up there, and I cut my slices off first. I slice the ladyfish first at pretty good angles.
You fillet it and then you cut it?
Nope. I have the whole fish laying there, and I cut my little slices, and then I do.
So you kind of chunk it almost.
I cut the chunks first, and then I fillet it off.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because
you get two sides. So you get chunk, fillet.
Yes.
Chunk, fillet. And so
exactly.
you get two sides. That's
exactly.
That's a good tip right there.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It works better than filleting it off and then trying to cut your chunks off of it.
Well,
Sure.
yeah, that's what.
Because it is such a soft meat and gets so mushy. So if you chunk it first and then fillet it off. And I do a pretty good angle. And when I hook mine, I don't know how I hook just one little hook and I let it flap down because you want to make it look like a fish, the shape of a fish. So the presentation on that, you just let it dangle down.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little hack. So I don't fish ladyfish very often, but when I do, I would just fillet it and get the fillet and take a pair of scissors and just cut it in strips. But what you're talking about sounds easier, so probably do that.
Another question from Chew Strong says, is now a good time to target flounder inshore?
Yes and no. Yeah, I mean, we caught some
I'm still
flounder.
catching them.
I've seen some flounder
I'm
caught.
still catching them inshore. If you're bouncing something off the bottom,
mud minnows.
Yeah, last week I went fishing here again. I have my cousin sitting here, Brenda. She hardly fished in the ocean. I mean, this is her first few times. We caught 3 16-inch flounder just bouncing. It was pink. We used pink, and we were using 1/4 ounce over the sandy spots, of course.
Yeah.
And she caught 3 16-inch. One was 18-inch flounder last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one of the things too, and I don't know if you've experienced this. I'm only going this off of hearsay. You know, we've talked about the urchins, you know, and the sandy spots that they've created out here. You know, from Steenhatchee to Keaton Beach.
I think that's a whole nother show, but yeah.
But one of the things that I've heard though is that if you are fishing in one of those areas that have the urchins have kind of cleared out, people have been catching some flounder in those.
Well, you know, it's sandy bottom, so
Yep.
I mean, something to take advantage of it because
And
when you guys, if you haven't seen, when you go out, if you're just a scalloper or summer fisherman, you're going to really notice some, especially between Keaton and Steenhatchee, a wide area of seagrass is going to be completely missing.
And that's what I was going to say too. Is when I've been out this week, I've seen people fishing over those areas that the urchins have cleared, and I don't know. You need to be very mindful. You know, the areas that you fished last year that had grass on them, they might not have grass on them this year because of the urchins. So
I actually have a picture of some sea urchins a friend of mine took about 3 weeks ago, and it was between Keaton Beach and Steenhatchee. The picture
it's that
is
Grassy Island area.
Yeah.
yeah. The picture was there were over 1,000. There were you couldn't even see the bottom.
Yep.
There were thousands of sea urchins touching each other, covering a large area in this one spot out there.
Jay and I first noticed it about this time last year, actually, and it was a decent sized area when we first saw it, and it's just
it grew exponentially over the last 6 months.
it's crazy from just 1 year how much grass.
So
is gone.
again, just be mindful. You know, like I was saying a minute ago. You know, make sure if you're not over grass, don't expect to catch a bunch of trout because the areas that the urchins have cleared out, there's not a whole lot of trout on them.
And if you got trawls, back to the flounder question, if you got some trawls with some tide moving through it, put some weight on a mud minnow and put a mud minnow down there. They love mud minnows.
All right, so that is the flounder question. Yes, there are still some flounder. There's still some flounder in close. I imagine as we get into the summer, they'll start more and more will start pushing offshore. Alan Whitaker says, when's the cobia coming? They're here.
Oh, yeah.
They're here.
They're here.
Yep.
So, you know, if you get out, you know, you've got some spots to check. There, you know, don't be surprised if you see some cobia on there. Our keeper size triple tail common in the Keaton and Steenhatchee areas. Any over 20s? Not in our areas. You've got to go Cedar Key,
You got to go
Beach,
south or west.
or Apalachicola, St. Mark's, Panacea, that area over there.
And I don't know
For
why.
whatever reason, we get small ones.
Yeah, I mean, you
But
can
we
go,
don't get the big. It's pretty. You know, if you catch a keeper, you've caught a nice fish.
Yeah, if you can go run and look for them, they may be out there, and you may see them, and you may see 30 keepers. 30 short fish to maybe one keeper, and if he's going to be keeper, he's not going to be big.
Yeah, you start seeing the keeper size once you start getting over towards.
Yeah,
St.
I had a
Mark's
friend go
and-
down to Swanee last weekend, and some very large.
Yeah, they've
triple
got
tails.
some big
send them
triple
down
tails.
there.
Yep.
Right.
Go to talk to Swanee for triple tail.
Absolutely.
Another question from Justin Schwartzentruber. Have the fish, generally speaking, moved out of the rivers like St. Mark's, etc., mainly heading out for open water? I guess we're referring to trout.
We're
talking about trout.
I'm assuming trout, and the answer would be yes. I mean, I'm sure you could still catch one in a river here and there, but yeah, they're not going to be holding in those rivers.
There's still some, you know, you might still find some redfish in the mouth.
Yeah,
of the rivers.
yeah, and mouths of creeks and rivers.
For sure.
You know, they'll
Those
be some
those
redfish
bars
hanging
that
around.
are on the mouth of the St. Mark's River, I've caught a lot of redfish on those, even in the summertime.
Lighthouse is on fire.
Always.
Always on fire.
All right. Next question has the sea urchins shown up in the St. Mark's area, or are they pretty much in the eastern areas? As far as I know, it's pretty much just from Keaton Beach south towards Steenhatchee.
Yeah.
And then
That's all I'm aware of.
I do know that Port St. Joe Bay is also having an issue with the sea urchins. And they just had a sea urchin roundup a couple weeks ago. Where
Apparently, this has been going on for a couple years down
over
there.
there.
Over there, I meant. Yeah.
For us, it's a rather recent event, and according to, you know, professionals, they say it'll come and go. Hopefully. So, all right. So that I hope that answers that question as far as the sea urchins go. Has the white bait come in yet? Travis Andrews asked, has the white bait come in yet? A little bit.
Man, we're not in South Florida, man. Come on now.
I think I know what he's asking, though. I mean, are we seeing? We talked about this earlier.
Not a
we're
ton,
not
not a
seeing
ton.
a lot of it yet. No.
Yeah.
So, All right. Are the Reds eating the sea urchins? No, I don't believe the Reds are eating the sea urchins, unfortunately.
That would be wonderful. Maybe the pufferfish would eat them, but I don't think
That would be
those
nice.
good-for-nothing pufferfish
Yeah.
can't even do that, I don't think.
That
Yeah.
would save us some tackle if they would.
Justin says, sorry, should have said I was talking about reds and trout. So hopefully that clears it up for you, Justin. Like we said, with the trout, you're probably not going to find any trout in the rivers, but you probably might still find some redfish in those rivers. So that's about it. I guess we'll start wrapping it up. If anybody has any last-minute questions, you need to get those in soon or right now. Did I miss anything?
No, I was just looking where we were time-wise.
Okay.
But, yeah, but just once again, come to Nowhere Grill, man.
Yeah.
It's a cool place. I'm enjoying the atmosphere is great, man. I'm just saying he's got the lights all over the patio.
And they're playing
trees
poker over
wrapped.
there. They got Wednesday night's poker night, so if
Yeah.
you want to get in on some poker, they got
Mark's
some
over
poker
there with
going
a
on.
pen or a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He's looking like a real poker dealer over there, man.
He
They
just
also
needs-
have other games, Jenga blocks and Connect 4 games. And
Yeah, to keep the
out-
kids busy.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think I heard a rumor they have cold beer and a full liquor bar over there too. So
Hearsay.
yeah, hearsay. I wouldn't know about the cold beer thing.
Got another question coming in. Judy Hall says, can sea urchins be cooked or eaten? I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a delicacy
Yeah.
in some places. So
Yeah, I've never ate them. I don't really know how to, but have you ever?
I've never eaten them, but I do know that there are in other countries they do eat them. And my husband and I were just talking the other day. How can we profit on this?
yeah, I mean,
Because
there's
we
plenty
need
of
to-
sea urchins.
We need to get rid of them
Yeah.
because
Hey,
they're
man.
destroying the grass beds.
Yeah, they
Maybe
are.
we'll get
Yeah.
the strippers to go drag some nets and just get them
Oh,
all
that'd
up.
be great.
Yeah, if you had to, like, say, if the scallopers had to bring in 10 sea urchins with their limit,
Oh, that's a good idea.
then that would really, you start to see it.
They do like to keep them
Yeah.
as souvenirs, like the sand dollars. We ought to tell them how to dry them and how to make souvenirs out
Yeah,
of them,
there
and
you
go. Yeah.
maybe they will keep more.
Somehow they cut these. I've seen it on like the Travel
Yeah.
Channel and like Food Network. They cut them in half and they fill them up with, I don't know, something, and you just eat it with a spoon right out of the shell. It's kind of a delicacy thing. I don't know. I'm gonna have to have somebody show me
Hey,
how to do
We're gonna
it.
get
I
some
think
recipes.
next episode we got to have a sea urchin and let Evan eat it.
Oh, okay. That sounds good to me. I like the Evan part.
We'll let
Hey, if somebody knows what the hell they're doing, I'll do it. I'm not gonna let you just cut one open and.
Now
dig
wait a
in.
minute. Do you eat the puffer fish? Now, if you eat those smooth puffer, you'll eat it.
I have ate puffer fish.
Well, there you
actually.
go.
I
What's
have.
an urchin then?
Yeah. Chicken tenders of the sea.
That's all right.
All right, so I guess that's going to about wrap us up. We want to always thank Nowhere Grill for hosting us this evening. The food is phenomenal. The atmosphere has been great. They've been super courteous, setting us up and giving us a spot to be. So, again, Nowhere Grill is on Keaton Beach Road between Perry and Keaton Beach. Before you get to Dead Man's Curve on the left. So if you get a chance, stop in here, say hello to Mark. He owns the place, and tell him that you heard about us or heard about him from us. And he might get you a little deal or something. So.
And Captain Crystal, if people want to follow up with you or want some more information on you, have a website, social media, stuff like that. How can people get a hold of you?
I do. If you look up Crystal Sea Charters, and it's Sea, S-E-A, like the ocean sea, Crystal Sea Charters, I have a website. My phone number's on there. Give me a call. If you want to email, info@crystalseacharters.com. Give me a call. Come see me.
And
My phone number's on the I'm on Facebook.
Yep. And you do inshore fishing and scalloping trips, right?
Absolutely. And booking, July's getting pretty full for scalloping, but I still have openings. And August, call and schedule. If you've never done it, it's a lot of fun. I'll walk you through it. I'm right by your side.
And do you provide all the gear necessary for that?
We prefer that people bring their own mask
Gotcha.
and snorkel, but I do have mask and snorkel for people who don't have it or don't want to purchase it.
10-4.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I'm good.
Good. All right. Well, that wraps us up. This is the June edition of the Apalachee Inshore Fishing Report. We will see you next
Thank
month.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Jay Carson, Evan Snow, Crystal. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it, as always. And we will see you guys next month.